All right, what's up, everyone? Kevin Allen here from DFS Army, and today we're going to take a look at showdown breakdowns for Super Bowl 55, LV, Chiefs, Bucks, over on SuperDraft, where SuperDraft has launched a bunch of really awesome contests for the Super Bowl. So we're going to do a new breakdown over at SuperDraft, taking a look at these contests that they've put together. And it's a really great slate of contests. It's a Super Bowl showdown. As you know, we do the Where My Turds At Super Bowl showdowns, showdown breakdowns every single week. And this is the final one of the season. So I am super excited. Now, let's take a quick look on screen here over at what SuperDraft has to offer for the Super Bowl, which is really awesome. These guys just made a deal with Caesars. They're coming up with a really great new reward system. And as such, they've really stepped up and become, in my mind, or they're likely on their way to becoming like a much bigger site. There's a lot of funding behind it. And what that means for us is we're going to get bigger contests and probably a ton of overlay. And you guys know how much I loves me some overlay. So brief description of how things work over at SuperDraft. It's a little bit of a different format compared to FanDuel and DraftKings in the sense that at SuperDraft, they don't use salaries. They use a multiplier, right? And so the way the multiplier works is you have to figure out with each player, not just what you expect them to score, but how that works relative to their multiplier. So I'll show an example here. I'm going to go to the flex position here. So for example, Pat Mahomes gets a 1x multiplier. Tom Brady is 1.2 and Travis Kelce 1.3 and so on and so forth. What this means is that if Pat Mahomes puts up 30 fantasy points like a standard scoring system would make, he'll get exactly 30 fantasy points. But if Tom Brady puts up 30 fantasy points in this format, he'll get 1.2x on the multiplier, which would be 36 fantasy points. So one of the keys to success on SuperDraft compared to FanDuel or DraftKings is they eliminate the idea of a salary cap and they go to this multiplier effect, right? Now, in their champion game, which is the showdown format that they use, the champion that you choose gets a 1.5x their multiplier effect. Again, no salary involved. So it's all about the multiplier effect. So the goal is to put what is essentially not just the highest scoring player in the game, but the highest scoring player, including the multiplier in the game, in your champion position, and then roll from there. So I've been playing on SuperDraft for a while. I love this format. I love this site. It's really fun to play because you don't have to give up on players. But the key to it has been, for me, finding the players with the highest multiples that pop off. So I'm going to show you an example of that. We might have a mean projection of a player like, of a player like Godwin of about, let's say, 12 fantasy points in this game. But if he pops off for 20 fantasy points, which isn't out of the question for a wide receiver. As a matter of fact, it's quite likely for a wide receiver to pop off in this kind of a game. Well, they're going to get a giant multiplier effect, and that's what allows players like wide receivers and in mediocre, that gives you the incentive to play these type of players in the champion spot. So we'll get into that real quick. First, I want to talk about the game, though. We got an awesome game between the Chiefs and the Bucks. Go to some DFS Army tools here. You could see that the total on this game is 56.5 points, and the spread is -3.5 for the Chiefs. The kind of the away Chiefs, because this game is borderline. It is a home game for the Bucks. Really interesting little side note there. So the first thing I like to do is just get a sense of the whole game and what we think might happen. And again, these are tools that you'd see over at dfsarmy.com. If you go to dfsarmy.com, you get signed up as a VIP. You can use all of these tools. And if you're not currently a SuperDraft user, you can also sign up for SuperDraft with promo code ARMY, and we're giving out a free month of DFS Army for anybody who signs up and uses that code. You just have to email us at support@DFS Army. Let us know you did that, and we'll set you up with a free month over at DFS Army. Now, check it out. Last week, it was interesting how the Chiefs ran their offense. If you take a look at the matchups tool that you could see on screen here, you'll note that Of course, Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill on the field pretty much the whole time. But a really interesting twist here is Byron Pringle got on the field for 80% of the snaps last week, ahead of Demarcus Robinson a little bit, and certainly ahead of Mecole Hardman, whose role doesn't seem to be particularly tied to. Just looking at some of these numbers, but Mecole Hardman's role isn't particularly tied to like other players. He seems to have designed plays specifically for him that he comes in at. So we can expect pretty much more of the same for him, which is the ability to pop off at any time, but don't expect a lot of volume, right? But Byron Pringle was really, really interesting, 80% target share. And now we have the likely return of Sammy Watkins. So I'm always looking for these low-end players, high multiplier players over on SuperDraft who might go off in any game. So those are some names to keep in mind, although maybe a little bit out there for this contest. At running back, it was pretty much an even mix between Darrell Williams and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Helaire was coming off the injury last week, so it's tough to know exactly what the Chiefs will do at running back, if Helaire or Darrell Williams will sort of get a little bit more of the work. But I tend to lean that it's going to continue to be sort of a split workload, which will limit the upside of both of these guys. And it's not the way I necessarily want to go with my champion position this week on SuperDraft. Now, shifting over to Tampa, obviously we know we love both of these quarterbacks. There's nothing, I don't have to talk too much about that. They're both going to be great. Over at Tampa, last week, Antonio Brown was out. He might be back for the Super Bowl. We're going to have to see. But it didn't really affect too much last week. You'll note that Godwin and Evans still got a little bit above, but not that far or not that different from their normal target share. They both wound up with around 25% of the targets last week. I think it's fascinating that Tyler Johnson got 25% target share. He didn't do anything with those targets, but they were there. Scotty Miller got a couple of looks, and he actually he did something with his targets, which was nice. Gronk, only one target. Really a disaster for Gronk. He's just not used in the offense very much. And at this point, it's only a tournament dart throw. And Cameron Brate was a little bit more of a useful passing game piece, even though he's on the field a lot less. As you can see here, it shows you the snap percentage last week, the target percentage last week. So you get a full idea. And look at that. Tyler Johnson on the field for 29% of the snaps and got 25% of the total targets, which, again, they brought him out. They were throwing to him, which didn't work out that great for them because he didn't do anything, but still really interesting to note some of those things. So with all that being said, let's take a look at the Super Draft. I'm actually going to go to the lobby first, and I wanted you to see some of these contests that they've put together for the Super Bowl because they're really, really impressive. And I'm telling you, there is going to be a ton of overlay. I've been playing on Super Draft for a while. I've been following them pretty much since they started, and these are the largest contests they've ever run, especially over one tournament. So here you've got the Hail Mary, which 27,500 entrants. It's a 150 max tournament. Good luck filling that. Guys, this is going to have massive overlay. They're basically going to give away free money to get you to play here. I'm begging you, if you're not signed up, get over there, sign up for an account, use promo code ARMY when you sign up, because they're also giving a 50% deposit bonus right away. So essentially you put in $1,000 or $500, they give you a bonus $250. It's so much money to play with, and they're going to overlay the shit out of these contests, which is great. So you've got this 20K to first Hail Mary. You've got a red zone 20K to first, $20 entry, also 150 entrant. And, play whichever one you're comfortable with. Obviously, this one with 27,000 potential entrants, I'm going to just look for whichever one has the most overlay, man. I'm eating up all the overlay. I'm eating it up. I love it. Love the overlay. And finally, they're going all in with a $4,000 to enter $1 million in prizes contest. Let's see what happens there. I'm going to be fascinated. That's going to be interesting to see how many people enter that. They might suck me into a 4K entry if there's enough overlay on that bad boy. So I'm going to keep my most exciting lineup that I think has the highest potential, the safest lineup, ready to roll for that one if there's a lot of overlay there. But let's take a look at the pricing system here and kind of show you how to construct a lineup this week on SuperDraft. One of the cool things we have over at DFS Army are projections specifically for SuperDraft, and this makes things a lot more comprehensible for me. I love looking at these projections because it ties in the multiplier along with their mean projection. But there's a trick here that I'm going to teach you in a second. So you might look at these and go, oh, easy money. Pat Mahomes got a 24-point projection, and he should be the top guy, right? Look at him right there. But here's the thing. Anytime you have a 1.0 multiplier against a mean projection versus a higher multiplier against the mean, we have to focus on the higher multiplier players, because even though Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce might have mean projections in the 17-point range, I have to say, I don't remember the last time Kelce scored less than 28 fantasy points. Like, this guy puts that up every time. Tyreek Hill's coming off a 30-plus point performance in the championship. So if you hit 30 at a 1.4 or even 25 at a 1.4, let's do the math very specifically. Let's say Kelce hits 30 fantasy points in this game. He gets a 0.3 multiplier. That's another 9 points. So that's 39 fantasy points. There's zero chance that, I'm not going to say zero. It's highly unlikely that Mahomes gets there. And I'll show you an example. Last week, and let's just take a look at the scoring. Last week, Mahomes put up 27.5 fantasy points versus the Bills, which is a great game. Not spectacular, but a very, very good game. There were a couple of rushing touchdowns in this game that could have gone to Mahomes. He could have scored even more. Fine. Got 27.5. Now let's take a look at what Brady did. He got 32 fantasy points in that same game, not counting the multiplier. Right? He already outscored straight up Mahomes. But you add the multiplier, he smashed. Right? Same deal with Tyreek Hill. Put up 23.7. You say, well, okay, Mahomes put up more points than Tyreek here, didn't he? No, because if you get a 1.4x multiplier, he actually wound up with 23.7 times 1.4 is 24. That's, almost 33 or 35 fantasy. I can't do the math that quick in my head, but it's enough to where he would have been the nuts champion. Actually, it probably was Kelce. So it's really, really important when choosing your champion. And this is how I do it. I'm looking for the high multiplier guys. I'm looking for guys that if they pop off, can get me there. And oddly, even the kicker is worthy of consideration because his multiplier is so high. So let's take a look at a lineup that I really like. So my first player, my favorite champion on the slate is Travis Kelce. And the main reason is he's a touchdown scorer. He gets a pretty nice multiplier effect. It's a little bit better than Tom Brady. So basically in this scenario, Kelce has to outscore pretty much every other position player by a little bit. And he's got to pretty much equalize his fantasy performance with somebody like Tom Brady. As long as he does that and he outscores every other player that is cheaper than him, he's going to be the nuts champion. And I think he's got a reasonable chance because Kelce tends to hit 28 fantasy points most weeks as just what Kelce does. Like, he hits those numbers pretty regular on DraftKings. Here on SuperDraft, scoring more in the 20-point range because of the half-point PPR. But nonetheless, if he pops, and again, we saw what he does when he pops, like last week, if he pops, that's where you get the smash game. So Kelce's one guy that I would scroll through. And again, I want my locked-in good scores that aren't necessarily smashes. You kind of just throw it together. One of the nice things about this format is you could play whoever you want. You don't have to worry about the price of a player. So Fournette had a really good week last week, scored touchdown, et cetera, and get him in there, 1.75x. That's a really good multiplier. Even if he just scores 10 points, you're getting 17 out of that. That's pretty good. Chris Godwin popped off a little bit last week. Actually, for the reason that just because Godwin popped off, I kind of like Evans a little bit more. But that's the idea of how to build a lineup here on SuperDraft for this big contest. My trick is I avoid the 1x types in the champion spot. We know who the best players are. It's just about who's going to be your champion versus some of these other spots. So it's really easy to scroll through. But my play is to look for the higher multiplier guys to try to throw in the champion, a little bit less owned, try to get that solo win. And the names that I really like for champion, and again, I think they have to have potential to score at least, to score a good amount, score at least 20 points, real points. So the names, I mean, I guess you could go with a Ryan Suckup and a Harrison Butker. I don't love those plays, but their multiplier effect is strong enough that they're worthy of at least consideration there. But my favorites are going to be Mike Evans. I love Mike Evans because, number one, he's coming off a down week, but it was a really tough matchup in the championships going against Yair Alexander. No one's having a good week. Most people aren't having a good week against Yair Alexander. So people kind of forgot the week before he was up against Marshawn Lattimore, who's owned him traditionally. So people kind of forget that Mike Evans, for most of this season, here's a pop-off game where he went off for 37 points. He's been the touchdown scorer. And between him and Godwin, he's actually been the guy more likely to put up a big score, especially using the SuperDraft scoring system, half-point PPR. So I really like Mike Evans as a potential captain to scroll through. Of course, Godwin is right there too at 2.45x on the multiplier. I'm going to avoid Hilaire. I think Fournette is worthy of consideration as well, just in case it's a run-heavy plan by the Bucs. That kind of probably needs the Bucs to be winning this game in order for that to work out, which we'll see. But I think Fournette doesn't really get game flowed out of this game regardless because of his passing game role. That's about it for the deep dive. In terms of the crap players, I mean, I guess one could consider a Mecole Hardman if he had some insane pop-off game. It's worth a shot or two. Beyond that, though, it gets really, really thin in this game because the game is going to be so concentrated on studs, I think. Moving down, of course, Tyreek Hill, strong candidate for your champion spot as well. I think it's a little bit more contrarian than Travis Kelce, but got a great potential to smash here. And again, the move here is to just fill out your lineup, build it sharp, get your Mahomes in there. I think that when you say Mahomes, if you take a look at the projection, this makes it so easy. It really does. It makes it a lot easier. When you take a look at these projections, it just tells the tale where Mahomes, even in a mediocre day, he's going to get you 24 points. A lot of these other guys, they're not getting there even with the multiplier. So it's really, really hard to get away from using both Brady and Mahomes in your lineups this week. And I think kind of makes it a little bit easier in terms of your lineup construction. So you can kind of just start with a champion of your choice, throw the quarterbacks in there, and then, who else do we want? And get us, one of Evans, Godwin, boom. I don't want to get too crazy with the Chiefs, but I do want to get too crazy with the Chiefs in this one. Anyway, the goal is to take the tournament down. So that's why we're going to kind of scroll through. We just switch up, or this is how I do it. I just switch up who I play at champion and kind of roll through to make a bunch of lineups that all look good. If I was making just one lineup that I loved, I mean, it's really, really safe, I guess, to put Mahomes or Brady up in the champion spot, but I think Kelce is about just as safe. So I'd probably do something along the lines of I think this would, what I'm about to show you is going to be probably the chalkiest approach to this. That'd be the most common lineup, I would assume, something like that. So you kind of want to find little ways to be different. But really, really exciting contest over on SuperDraft. Again, if you're not subscribed, or if you're subscribed, if you don't have an account over there, go to SuperDraft. Make sure you use promo code ARMY. You get the free month of DFS Army. And, of course, the 50% deposit match from SuperDraft. Check out these contests. They're really, really awesome. And if you're not a DFS Army VIP and you're just watching this video, of course, go to DFS Army. You can get our SuperDraft projections as well as every other sport site, everything. We do projections for all of the SuperDraft games. So we have them for MMA, NASCAR, NFL, NBA. We love the NBA product over at SuperDraft. It's really, really great. So you'll be able to check all of that stuff out with the best projections in the industry. All right, that's it for this Showdown breakdown. I will be back with more Super Bowl coverage throughout the week. Make sure to like and subscribe to the YouTube page that you are watching this on, the DFS Army YouTube, for more great daily fantasy sports content. Good luck this week, everyone. Take care.